The story of Moses. Generations passed. The Egyptians forgot about Joseph and how he had saved their nation from famine. A new pharaoh came to the throne. He noticed how numerous the Hebrews in Goshen had become and thought, "Who is this people that dwells among us? We must do something to reduce their numbers, or in time of war they may join our enemies and fight against us." Pharaoh sent taskmasters and overseers to the land of Goshen to enslave the Hebrews. The Egyptians put them in chains. They beat them with whips and set them to work at all sorts of heavy labor in the cities and in the fields. The children of Israel groaned in misery, and their cries went up to heaven. In spite of all the sufferings Pharaoh inflicted on the Israelites, their numbers increased. Pharaoh thought of a secret plan to stop them from multiplying. He summoned 2 Hebrew midwives named Shiphrah and Puah. Pharaoh said to them, "Whenever you help a Hebrew woman give birth, take note of the newborn's gender. Let it live if it is a girl, but if it is a boy, kill it. Tell the mother it died naturally." Shiphrah and Puah would have nothing to do with Pharaoh's plan. They delivered the children as before, letting all live. When Pharaoh asked why the number of Israelites was not decreasing, they told him, "The Hebrew women are not Egyptians. They deliver their children very quickly. By the time the midwife arrives, the child is already born and nursing." Pharaoh decided to punish the midwives for their defiance. He sent soldiers to kill them, but Yahweh protected the 2 women by making them invisible. The Egyptians searched everywhere, but could not find them. After this failure, Pharaoh changed his mind. He no longer attempted to kill the male children in secret. He commanded that in the future, whenever a Hebrew woman gave birth, the girl infants were to be saved, but the boys were to be thrown into the Nile River. This decree caused great anguish among the Hebrews, who had to watch helplessly while Egyptian soldiers drowned their children or fed them to the crocodiles in the river. However, one woman was determined to protect her child. Her name was Jochebed. She and her husband, Amram, had been married for several years. Like all Hebrews in Egypt, they suffered under the Pharaoh's cruel decrees. Their first child, Miriam, was a girl. Her name means bitterness because she was born after the Egyptians enslaved the Hebrews and began to embitter their lives. Though still a child herself, Miriam possessed wisdom beyond her years. Jochebed, a midwife, taught Miriam her skill. Miriam delivered Jochebed's second child, a boy named Aaron, meaning born in sorrow. Jochebed gave him that name because he was born after Pharaoh ordered the midwives to begin killing Hebrew children. Together, Jochebed and Miriam saved many boys from death by delivering them in secret. Indeed, they were the 2 midwives whom Pharaoh tried to enlist in his secret plan. Shiphrah and Puah were their Egyptian names. Shiphrah means comforter. Puah means helper. Miriam, who was still a small child, helped her mother comfort the Hebrew women who were about to give birth. In spite of the courage shown by his wife and daughter, Amram began to lose hope. He thought, "What is the use of having children? The boys are killed as soon as they are born. The girls grow up to be slaves." He resolved to end this tragic cycle by divorcing Jochebed. Although he loved her dearly, he did not want to bring any more children into the world. Miriam came home one day to find her mother weeping. She asked the reason. Jochebed told her, "Your father divorced me. He wishes to live apart. He does not want us to have any more children." Miriam confronted her father. "You are more cruel than Pharaoh. He only wishes to get rid of the boys. You would eliminate the girls as well." Amram protested, but Miriam brushed his arguments aside. "Pharaoh deprives his victims of life in this world. You would prevent children from being born, thus depriving them not only of life in this world, but of life in the world to come. Pharaoh is a wicked man. I believe that Yahweh will not allow him to destroy our people. However, if we lose hope and cease to have children, our people will be no more. We ourselves will give Pharaoh the victory that Yahweh would deny him." Miriam's arguments convinced Amram to change his mind. He remarried Jochebed with great rejoicing. Miriam and Aaron danced around their parents' wedding canopy, while angels proclaimed overhead, "Let the mother of children rejoice." That night Miriam had a dream. A man in a white linen robe appeared to her, saying, "Tell your mother and father that a son will be born to them. He will be cast into the waters, yet through him the waters will become dry land. He will perform wonders and miracles without number. He will redeem the children of Israel from slavery and raise them above other nations." 6 months later, Jochebed gave birth to another child. Miriam delivered him in secret to hide his existence from the Egyptians. Although the boy was born early, he was large and fully formed. He was the most beautiful child among the Israelites. Jochebed and Amram called him Tuvia, meaning God is good. Miriam called him Jekutiel, which means trust in God. As the infant grew bigger, it became harder and harder for Jochebed to keep his existence a secret. Sooner or later, the Egyptians were bound to discover him. Jochebed took a desperate chance to save her son. With Miriam's help, she wove a wicker basket just large enough to hold the infant. She lined it with clay and coated the outside with pitch to make it waterproof. Together, she and Miriam placed the basket among the tall reeds that grew along the banks of the Nile. Jochebed returned home, but Miriam remained behind, watching the floating cradle from a distance. At midday, when the hot Egyptian sun reached its height, Pharaoh's daughter, the princess Thermutis, and her handmaidens came down to the river to bathe. The princess suddenly noticed a basket floating among the reeds. Curious, she sent one of her maids to fetch it. To her surprise, she discovered that it contained a child. "How came this baby to be floating on the Nile?" the princess asked. "It must be a Hebrew child," one of her handmaidens exclaimed. "We should turn it over to the soldiers." "No," the princess insisted. "I do not care where this child comes from. I found him. He is mine. I will not allow him to be harmed." "But who will nurse him?" the handmaidens asked. Just then, Miriam came forward. She had been watching and listening the whole time. Miriam bowed to the princess and said, "I know a Hebrew woman who has just given birth. Her own child was taken away. She will make a good nursemaid for this one." "Bring her to me," Thermutis ordered. Miriam ran home to fetch her mother. Thermutis gave the baby to her, saying, "Take this child to your home. Nurse him and care for him. When he is weaned, bring him to me." And so it happened that the baby came to be nursed by his own mother and cared for by his own sister. When he was old enough to eat solid food, they brought him to the palace. Thermutis raised him as if he were her own child. She named him Moses, which means, "I took him from the river."